So, I don't know whether what they've just sung is anything like what's going on in your life now. You're rushing here and there, you've got ding-dong bells going everywhere, you're getting cards, you're not wrapping them, you're sending them to people that you haven't missed, and some people that you have. You're buying foods ready to cook, you're wrapping presents, you're going through a gift list, and then all of a sudden you come into church or you have a time with God and it's silent, and it's a pause. And then as soon as you leave the door, it's boom, 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 boom. So far this Christmas, I've had 3 Christmas dinners. No. 3 Christmas dinners. 3 different functions. How many socials have you been to so far this Christmas? I've been to, I only went to 1 children's performance. I've got 2 daughters. Ooh. I didn't make the other one because I was too busy. I got caught up in something and I didn't make Kyra's nursery performance. Some of you should have said, or something like that, but no, heartless. No, shame on me, yeah. We're going from, okay, not too harsh. Bit of grace. Busyness at Christmas is inevitable. We've got, just this week, you may have a life group meeting. You may have a social, a celebration with work. You may be involved in Christmas Unwrapped. There are 3 services on Sunday. Then Christmas Eve, we've got a service as well as the things that you're getting ready at home. And then Christmas Day, if you've come to the Christmas Eve service, you may leave here at, say, 20 past 12, and then you're back here at 10 in the morning. And then some people may be jumping in the car straight after that service to drive somewhere else, to visit family or friends. Busyness is inevitable, I guess. And during the first part of the service, Hannah, was it you on camera? Did you notice that Hannah focused in on this scene during one of the songs? I'm sorry, I'm going to be walking around. I'm going to be a nightmare for the people online. Sorry, people online. But she focused in on this scene, and as the camera dwelt there for a while, my mind paused from what we were singing, and I started thinking about the baby in the manger. And then at another point, she captured this crib and cross up on the upper platform. And I learnt with our first 2 girls, hang on a sec, you're going to judge me if I pick up the baby incorrectly. Sorry, no. I learnt with our first 2 girls that you can't rush when you've got a baby in your arms. Or if you rush, you might make noise and wake them up when they're trying to sleep. And quite often when people come near a baby, especially if they're really little, they'll go a little bit quieter and they'll gather round with that kind of, shh. This Christmas, have you paused? Or has December so far, has that Advent, 3 Advent candles lit? We're already on the 3rd Sunday. Have you paused to think about the child? Or even in a service, have you raced through songs and readings and sermons, and we're getting there, we're getting to the end, hands in the air, sit down, hands in the air, sit down, rushing through. Have you paused? My prayer is that we have moments where we are undistracted this Christmas to engage and encounter the Prince of Peace, who came as a baby and was laid in a crib, and as he grew, went to a cross. One of the passages that's read from Isaiah quite often is Isaiah 9, verses 6 and 7, and it says this: "For a child is born to us, a son is given to us, the government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Now I've got 4 names, including a double-barreled surname. This child has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 names. Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. But in Scripture, a name given describes the person that it's been given to. The child will be called Wonderful Counselor. Do you need that this Christmas? A counsel from God, his wisdom? Do you need God's might? Do you need a fresh encounter with God who is mighty, whose love and existence is everlasting? And then this last part of his name, Prince of Peace. I'm going to focus in on that during this reflection. And then verse 7, it says that his government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen. I believe that in the rush of preparations for Christmas, that God wants to bring us into a place of encounter of the Prince of Peace tonight. A place of encountering, not just knowing, but experiencing his peace. And to help us do that, I'm going to reflect on some verses in Mark's Gospel. Mark gets missed out at Christmas. Some people are ready with the Bibles. If you want to have a Bible, just pop up your hand and Mark and Floss will bring a Bible round. Mark gets missed out quite often at Christmas. Can anyone tell me why? Oh, people are putting up their hands for Bibles. I was just about to say, yeah, you. Mark gets missed out because he doesn't necessarily have the Christmas story in his Gospel, in his account of Jesus' life. In Matthew's account of Jesus' life, we have the Magi, the wise people from the east. In Luke's account, we have the shepherds. In Luke's account, we have Simeon and Anna. In John, we have, as Hua has prayed, that God has come and dwelt among us. Mark isn't read from typically at Christmas. Why? Because he skips over the birth and starts his gospel with this: the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. We're going to have a look at that verse and some other verses in a little bit, but I want to just kind of give a bit of information about Mark's gospel, because he writes at quite a pace. He uses the word immediately 27 times in the first 11 chapters, and there are only 16 chapters in Mark's gospel. Immediately is a phrase that Mark likes to use. Other phrases, and then, as soon as, straight away. These happen all the way through these 11 chapters because Mark wants to get through to his readers that it's not just about the crib. He doesn't mention the birth. It's about the person who's come, the Christ, and the cross that he's going to hang on. It wasn't wrong for Mark to miss out the baby in the manger. I'm not saying it was wrong, because actually what he was trying to do between 60 and 70 AD when he wrote it, he was trying to get the message, the basic message of Jesus out to people who needed to hold on to the truth of who Jesus is and why he came. It was a given that he had come. He just wanted to get it out there so that people could hold on to it when it got hard. And they could hold on to who Jesus is and what he had come to do. So Mark's message of peace and awe is not found through a narration of wise people kneeling at the side of a baby's crib, or shepherds, stinking shepherds, being invited in. No, for peace and awe in Mark's gospel comes not at a crib, but at a cross. Not in a manger, but in the miracles that Jesus does. Not in a crowded village, but in the mystery of an empty tomb. For Mark, this Prince of Peace, this source of all wholeness peace, this shalom peace that God will bring, he wants to get this message out there, and he's not going to waste time, and I say that very gently, on giving description of how Jesus came. He jumps straight to the main message, the main event. And he reveals Jesus as the Son of God. He reveals Jesus as God who associates himself with us and makes a way for us to find peace with God, with ourselves and with one another. Wholeness peace, healing peace, restoration peace. That's what the Hebrew word shalom means. I've only given a few descriptions of it, but it means so much more. It's not just peace as an absence of conflict. It is wholeness, perfection. I want us to look at Mark chapter 1 and Mark chapter 15. These are the kind of two bookends of Mark. I know that there's chapter 16 in Mark, but the main focus of Mark isn't necessarily the resurrection, but it's the cross and the path to the cross. And in Mark chapter 1, verse 1, we read this: the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, the Son of God. And then if we jump to Mark chapter 15, verse 39, we read this. It's from a centurion. Now when the centurion who stood facing him, that's Jesus on the cross, saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was God's Son." At the beginning of Mark's gospel and at the end of Mark's gospel, there's a confession of who Jesus is. He's the Son of God. It's not just a celebration of a baby in a manger. Babies being born is always a time to celebrate, but Mark realizes how important this baby is, and the other gospel writers do as well. But he wants to show his real identity as an adult. And sometimes Mark hides Jesus' identity, as it were, and other times it's revealed more clearly. In Mila's Christmas nativity play last year and this year, it was nice, it was cute. Kids on stage singing and dancing and acting, some quite wooden, some, "Oh, I'm very dramatic." You can tell whose parents they match up to in the playground as well. Sorry if any parents are watching online. But what is missing quite often in children's nativity plays is the main message of Christmas. It's all about the cute baby in the manger. Well, actually, sometimes it's not. It's more about dancing the Strictly Come Dancing dances, which it was this year. It was Lights, Camel, Action was the title. And it was all about dancing in Bethlehem. And Mary and Joseph going to Bethlehem. But Jesus wasn't really mentioned until the very end. And the message was God's Son was born so God could show us his love. It was a tag-on. It wasn't even revealed properly. Mark's gospel sometimes reveals Jesus' identity, and other times it's like a journey through And then he makes it clear in chapter 15, verse 39, and clear in verse 1 of chapter 1. I wonder if sometimes we are rushing through and we forget the identity of the baby in the manger. Are we singing when we sing, "O come all ye faithful, come let us adore him"? Are we coming and adoring the baby in the crib or the man who died on a cross? Or both? Up on the platform, you can see that to get to the cross, you need to go through the crib. And Jesus' birth and his death and resurrection, there's a process, a flow, and I know that we know this, but it's helpful to just recognize the connection between this season and the reason for Jesus coming. This Prince of Peace, the Son of the Creator of the world and Creator of peace itself, has arrived on the scene. And in this baby, the seemingly invisible God becomes visible. And this is pretty good news. But if it's just about a baby and not about why he came, it loses something of the good news. So let's not rush through and just think about baby. Think about why Jesus came as well. Jesus showed that he was the Son of God. In Mark's Gospel, we also see a realization of what Jesus is like and why he came. In chapter 1, verse 9 to 13, if you just look down, glance down, it's about his baptism and his temptation. God is saying, I am taking on flesh and associating myself with humanity. I am coming and showing that I am one of you, so you can be part of me. I'm coming from a distance, up close and personal, experiencing life as you experience it. Yet I'm living the perfect life. That's what chapter 1, verse 9 through to verse 13, his baptism and his temptation is teaching about. God is immersing himself in humanity. He's coming close. He's not staying at a distance. And then, as I've said, we'll jump to chapter 15. And here we have a man who's a Gentile, far from God, stood at the cross. And there are women, marginalized members of society, stood at a distance. And as Jesus breathes his last, verse 37, and then verse 38, as he breathed his last, the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. God did not stay at a distance, but he came close, so that we and those who are at a distance could come close to God and not just stay watching from afar like the women in the story were, not just stay apart from God's people like the centurion was, but invited in to God's presence and closeness with him. Jesus reveals himself as the Son of God. He opens up the way for us to find our way back to him, to come close to God. And then ultimately, his abandonment on the cross is so that we could be repaired and receive peace. I am going to invite some quiet after the sermon, before we sing a song. And I wonder whether you just want to take time focusing in on the crib and the cross. Don't miss the full picture this Christmas. Slow down and hear God's invite not simply to kneel in awe and admiration at the Christ child in the crib, but kneel in surrender at the cross of the Christ child who grew up. Slow down and see in the manger scene not merely a baby, but the miraculous acts that that baby grew up to do and is still able to do today. Slow down and stand in awe of the invisible gods becoming visible in Jesus, his Son. The Prince of Peace, bringing his peace-bringing presence through his death and resurrection. Slow down and realize that the story of Christmas is a story where outsiders are invited into God's story. Those on the outside are invited in. Those who are far off are invited closer to encounter God himself. This took place at the first Christmas, but it took place again about 33 years later. We're on a cross. Jesus breathed his last, and that curtain that separated God and people was torn, was taken down, was done away with. The Christ child experiences abandonment by his Father in order for us never to be abandoned by God. Don't rush past the scene this Christmas. Remind yourself who the baby is and what the baby came to do. The centurion said, "Truly this is the Son of God." And in the words of the song, I believe in Jesus. I believe he is the Son of God. I believe he is here now, standing in our midst. He's here with the power to heal and the grace to forgive. In these moments of quiet, and as the band leads us in songs of adoration and prayer, take time to step out of the traffic and take a long, loving look at our gods. And then before the end of the service, or as soon as you leave, get your diary out and intentionally carve out a moment tomorrow and Tuesday and so on to step out of the traffic and look at the crib and look at the cross. Father, would you help us as we pause to know who you are and why you came. May we know your peace, Prince of Peace, your wholeness and healing. Help us not to be fearful of slowing down and meeting with you. Amen.